Sorry. Welcome everybody, and thank you for coming on this very cold night at the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for January 28th, 2014. Christine, can we have a roll call, please?
Mark Berry.
Present.
John Morozen.
Present.
Chris Letchinger, present. Leanne Charlotte.
Present.
Julie Gottschall.
Present.
Richard Hay.
Present.
Susan Wright.
Present.
We have 7. We have a quorum. We can come to order. We've already come out of closed session. We are now going to begin our regular meeting and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Nobody to lead us? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we are going to move directly into the most exciting news of the evening, which is the approval of a new principal for Lake Bluff Elementary School. And I would like to, so I'll ask for the motion. Or do you want to give the introduction first?
I'd like to give the introduction
We will
first.
now hand the mic over to Jean Sophie, who will give a brief introduction of our amazing new principal.
I am so excited to bring our new Lake Bluff Elementary School candidate, Margaret St. Clair, to our board for board approval this evening. As you know, the search for the new principal has been going on several months. We wanted to make sure we took enough time to conduct a thoughtful, deliberate, and inclusive search. The process included input from focus groups, an online survey, and additional input from all of you, teachers, administrators, and community members. This was used to create a leadership profile, which outlined the most important characteristics of our ideal candidate. Everyone told us you want a principal with administrative experience, who is willing to make a long-term commitment and has a proven stability of leadership. Elementary school experience and a track record of successful implementation of initiatives and instructional growth were also important. Strong people skills and the ability to communicate well were other required strengths, with the ability to effectively listen to concerns, establish respected relationships, and build trust. Strong curriculum knowledge was another area, along with the ability to emphasize strategies to improve teaching and learning and initiate discussions about instructional approaches, both in teams and in individual teachers. Finally, I would just tell you the recruitment firm assisted us with the search told me that many people shared, just bring us the perfect principal. Well, I have to share with you tonight, we found the perfect principal. I am happy to report, no pressure. I'm happy to report that Margaret meets these qualifications and many more. Her experience teaching in the Lake Forest Elementary Schools provided her with a background in elementary education in a community where student success is our priority. Most recently, as a principal in Lincolnshire, she has facilitated a positive, collaborative environment where students are successful, parents are satisfied and involved, and teachers continue to grow professionally. She is very sensitive to our need for stability of leadership at Lake Bluff Elementary School, and for ongoing, open, efficient communications with parents, students, and teachers. She has shared that she is thrilled to be part of the Lake Bluff learning community and is looking forward to settling in this place that already feels like home to her, where she can make a contribution and where people know they can count on her. I am really excited to have her join our District 65 team. Margaret will be attending several community events in the spring, and I'm sure that our community will see her on a semi-regular basis, prior to her start on July 1st. So I'm excited to bring you my recommendation for approval this evening.
It sounds like we need fanfare and trumpets. All right, may I have a motion to approve the employment of Margaret St. Clair as principal at Lake Bluff Elementary School per the contract documents attached in your packet?
So moved.
Second. Chris, we have a roll call vote, please.
John Morozen.
Yes.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Hay.
Yes.
Susan Wright.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Chris Letchinger. Yes.
The motion is approved, and we now have a new principal at Lake Bluff Elementary School. Welcome, thank you.
Members of our board, I would like to request that our building administrators head home. They've had a rough couple of days waiting for our students to be back in school. So I would respectfully ask that they be excused to head home and get ready for all of our students returning back to the classrooms tomorrow.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yep.
There's no reason for her to do that. She knows she can watch us on Channel 19. She really wants to.
And anybody that would like to continue watching can watch on Channel 19 in Lake Bluff. The meeting will continue.
We're signed up.
So,
Jean, don't we want to sign her up?
I signed her. Already done.
thanks.
We're on Channel 19 if you get home and you want to watch that. Or you can see that online on the video in a day or two. All right. We skipped the public comment portion without intentionally doing that. So I want to just make sure that if there's anybody who would like to address the board, please do so now. I apologize for accidentally skipping out of order there. Okay, we're going to start with our reports. Action item number 6 and the PTO report by Ann Stewart.
Okay, first of all, we had Rosalind Weissman last week. It turned out to be a really wonderful event. She came, she spoke to the teachers, she spoke to the parents, she spoke to the students. I felt like she did a wonderful job. I think there's a lot of positive feedback. That was something that was about a year and a half in the making. Thank you to Kate Amaral for bringing her in. So that went very well. LBES Science Night was canceled. Obviously, it was supposed to be Monday night. So we are encouraging all families to go to LBMS. That is taking place February 12th from 7 to 9 p.m. March 1st, we have our Swingin' Soiree at Lake Forest Club. It's a Great Gatsby themed party. Tickets are available on the PTO web store. They are $75 in advance, $85 at the door. So please come and support the PTO with that. And then the last thing I want to do is talk about these birdhouse libraries. Did everyone get this publication, I hope? And also, I just want to hand out, may I approach the bench with...
Thank you.
Yes.
You may approach.
Thank you.
Oh, I love these.
The PTO has partnered with the Park District, and we are going to be putting these birdhouse libraries into 5 different parks throughout Lake Bluff. The idea is that we will stock these birdhouse libraries with books. They're going to be books for all ages of people. The idea is that people can come, they take a book out, and they replace it with a book that they are no longer using. It is a way so that all people in the community, school kids, anyone at all, can come and get free books to encourage literacy. It will be just a great way for everyone to participate in reading and sharing literature throughout the community. The 5 parks that we will have these birdhouse libraries are Sanctuary Park, Knollwood, West Park, Maughman Park, and Sunrise Park. There will also be one at the vacant lot of East School. I hope that we will have these installed by May 1st, but with the weather, we never know when the ground will become unfrozen, so we'll see how that goes. But certainly before school is out, these will all be installed. And the Park District has been wonderful. They are installing all of them for us, and then the PTO will be maintaining them. That's my report. Thank you.
Thanks.
One question. The science
Yes.
fair is going to be on the 12th.
February 12th at
and
the middle school.
That had been from 6 to 8.
Now it is
Elementary.
elementary's earlier because they're younger.
Are they going to have it from 6 to 8 for the
No,
elementary?
they will have it from 7 to 9 at the middle school. So again, we encourage, and if that changes, I will be sending out a constant contact at some point. So we need to work out some of the details on that, and perhaps we'll try to make it a little bit longer or a little bit earlier to accommodate some of the younger folks. We haven't worked out those details yet.
That's what I was thinking. I'm going to bring my granddaughter to it.
Yes, and
She's after 7.
Well, and that's a point of discussion that we'll have, and then, so we'll send out a constant contact about that.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6B, the President's Report. Jean and I had a conversation about what to present. We thought it would be a good idea to inform the community about some of the what we're calling community building or team building initiatives the board has undertaken. I think most of my fellow board members are aware of what we've been doing, but I want to make sure everybody in the village is aware. The board in general believes that it's very important to reinforce a sense of community in Lake Bluff, that we're all in this together, that we want to reduce the feelings of us versus them throughout the community, and that collaboration is a word we use not just as a buzzword, but something that we really try to live by. And I want to talk about some of the specific things we're doing to build community in Lake Bluff. One of the things that not a lot of people are aware of is Jean and I and John Marzin have attended meetings of a not-for-profit organization called the Charmed Foundation. The Charm's mission is unique to tax-paying bodies in that they strengthen tax-exempt community leaders through the practice of emotional intelligence and ethical reflection. And us, along with members from the village, the park district, from the schools, from Lake Forest, and their city offices and their schools, and the police department, our police department, along with members from Zion Benton community, I believe New Trier Township, and there might be one other that I'm not recalling. But we've had several meetings that I've been involved in for several years. That it's a very worthwhile organization that is really helping to bring communities together and share experiences of how they can do a better job for their communities. One of the outcomes of that group was we learned something from Zion Benton Township in particular, and that they have started to bring the character education programs that they have in their school systems, that we have in our school systems, out into the community to help spread the word and help develop a more civilized dialogue within the community. And in fact, along with Kathy O'Hara and the folks at LEAD, we're starting an organization between Lake Forest and Lake Bluff that we don't have a name for yet, but we're going to call it for now the Civility Group, which is going to be comprised of active community leaders. We'll begin meeting, I think, in the middle of February, and begin a dialogue with people from Lake Bluff and Lake Forest as to how to improve communications and civility across the board in everything the village and the school and the park district does, and hopefully set the tone for the entire community. Another thing that we do that we've been doing for years, but we want to make sure everybody's aware, is we have a tri-board committee on the school board that meets quarterly or 4 times a year.
We're trying for 3 times a year.
With members of the village. They have their own committee at the village and at the park district, and ways to share services, cut costs, and make things better for the community in general. We've recently just issued a tri-board newsletter, which will be hitting the mailboxes pretty soon, I believe.
It's already.
It's out.
It's out. Good. Another thing that we're doing, similarly, we've been doing for years, and we really want to kind of reinvigorate it, is what we call tri-district boards, meeting between Lake Bluff schools, Lake Forest Elementary District 67, and Lake Forest High School District 115, where we have a team of several members who meet with members from their schools on a regular basis and find ways that we can all coordinate and work together. Our Jean and her team of administrators meet on a regular basis with people from Lake Forest and the school districts there to make sure that we're all on the same page and have our kids in mind and doing what we need to get them through the high school in tip-top shape. On personal level, I've reached out to the presidents of the tri-boards, of the president of the park district, Kevin Considine, and the president of the village, Kathy O'Hara, and we meet every month for coffee at various places around the community and share and talk about ways that we could work together. It's been very productive. I do the same thing with the presidents of District 67, William Anderson, and the president of 115 School Board, Todd Bergener. We meet every month. We've been doing this for 4 or 5 months now, something like that. It's been very productive. It's opened some doors. It's helped. We've all learned something new about us as individuals, but as our schools as well. And last but not least, and something I want to encourage everybody in the community that I try to reach out and have is conversations, coffee, drinks with community leaders, opinion leaders, and anybody in the district who needs to speak to us about our schools and our community. And I want everybody out there to know that I'm available and we're available, Gene's available to speak with people as they need to. So that's my president's report. And if anybody has any questions, otherwise I'll move on to Gene and new board planning the superintendent's report.
I will share, just to add to Mark's comments, it is critical in today's times in the state of Illinois with the number of taxing bodies that we have. As small districts, we have to be very conscientious of looking at shared services as often as we can. Actually, state reporting now dictates that we must list all the shared services that we have. Before I came to this district, also being in a small district, I attended the consolidation meetings on a regular basis and had conversations with Sheila Simon leading that effort. And frankly, if we don't start showing the shared services, those districts that are not doing that will be in jeopardy down the road. So the more we look for shared services and hearing all the things that the board and the administration are doing, it's vital to keep our small district going and really do what's best for the kids in the community. So I just want to emphasize that. My favorite topic, actually of the month, I can't even say of the week, is weather. And it's been an interesting January. I've lived here since a little girl in the 60s. And of course, we went to school and everything and walked to school barefoot and all that you hear from everybody. But I will share with you, I don't remember it ever being this cold and this many days off in school ever. It's been quite a long time coming as far as we've been spoiled, but I will share with you this has been a really rough year. I did send out a constant contact to parents today, letting them know all the different items that were involved in deciding about weather. And I think it's critical that everybody knows we spent a lot of time. We conference with superintendents from the North Shore, the Lake Forest Superintendent, Deerfield, Highland Park, North Shore, Bannockburn. We share language for messaging. We look at the weather, we debate, we talk about buses and children's safety. Earlier in the month, when we were off 2 days, there were several districts north of us that were open and wound up having a lot of problems with the diesel fuel actually gelling up in the buses, causing schools to cancel at 7 o'clock when the kids were already out at the bus stop. That was a big consideration this week for us. I will also share with you that we have to take into account fire alarms. If the fire alarm was pulled, we're still mandated to evacuate the building. All of these things we take into account when we decide to cancel school. So I know that the kids are really getting used to Dr. Sophie's voice saying that school is canceled, and they have pretty good imitations of me at this particular point. We are very mindful of the imposition this creates on our families. So the earlier we can make the call and parents have that information, the earlier they can make their arrangements. We very much appreciate everyone's understanding and want you to know that student and staff safety is always at the forefront of our thinking at all times. But I do want to remind you, we still have 2 months left of winter. With that being said, we are working on scheduling makeup days, which I will talk about later in this presentation. And I'd like to run some ideas by you during the calendar discussion this night. And, excuse me, get that information out to our families as soon as possible. So thank you for your understanding, and hopefully we won't have to exercise this again this year. That concludes my report.
All right, so we'll move on to item 7, discussion items. A is the Lake Bluff Middle School Facilities Study Update, and that will go back to Jean.
I just wanted to share that, tying in with the weather, our first facilities meeting at the middle school was canceled because it was on one of our days that we had cold weather earlier in the month. The plan is that the facilities committee that is comprised of 12 or 13 parent and community members that either sat on board goal 3 or have expressed an interest in the school. We'll be looking at that educational adequacy study and coming up with several recommendations based on the study. At that point, we will also prioritize and bring back for your consideration feedback. I will also in February start looking at putting RFPs out for architects, because that was something we decided on. And timing wise, I'd like to bring the recommendations to you from the committee for your consideration, as well as looking at the RFPs around the March timeline. Keeping in mind that we can start on some of the projects, minor projects, little projects this summer. The majority of any work would not even be able to start for another year. So I just wanted to give you that update. We do have our first facilities meeting tomorrow night, and we're having school tomorrow, so I think we'll have the meeting.
You will. Okay, does that conclude that
That
update?
concludes that update.
Moving on to item 7B, strategic planning indicators. Jean's going to break this up over the series of next several meetings, and we'll talk about this little pieces at a time. And I'll hand it back to Jean to take us through this.
This is still a work in progress. We need to make it pretty. We need to finish filling in many of the indicators. Board goals 1 and 2 have to be run by staff, our district improvement team. And that meeting now has been canceled twice due to weather and rescheduled. So that's why I chose to go through board goal 3 tonight first, because we kind of hashed through that one. So if you look, and I have more for the audience. So if one of you wants to come up, you can pass these out. I tried to bring enough for everybody. If you flip through to about 3 pages in, it says board goal 3, ensure long-term fiscal stability and efficiency. And this is a good time to ask questions. We tried to assign things for different years, so I just want to walk through. One of the highlights I want to point out to you is the schedule for reporting. The months that you see in the schedule for reporting, you're going to see again on the board planning calendar that comes up later in this. So everything, bless you. When we're done with our strategic plan, every single indicator will be presented in different months, and that will align with our board planning calendar. So we know that in the prioritization of the allocation of district resources in alignment with the strategic goals, we know that we're going to develop a prioritization form based on essential data questions that will measure that. Now, if you remember, last spring we did the 5 essentials state test. It's optional for us to do that this year. We've chosen to do that every year. And one of the questions, or 2 of the questions, it really, when we analyze the test, will be, I feel safe in the school. Or I feel secure in the school. Different things as far as safety will be measured on this particular line item. If you look at year 2, all new major purchases then must utilize the form to document alignment with priorities. This would be all new major purchases in alignment with our board policy that we'll be bringing back to you. I believe the dollar amount is over, what is it, Jane, 25,000? Okay. In year 3, 90%, by then we will have used the state test. We will have developed baseline data. By year 3, we're ready to say at least 90% of our students and staff feel safe in our schools. And that's usually a benchmark, is 90%. In year 4,
How do you measure that?
we're going to measure it from the question on the 5 essentials test that is going to be given. So
And that's the one the state has been having trouble debating how much of it to release or something like that?
yes,
It's
But-
it's a survey, right? It's
Yes.
a test.
it's really a survey. And there are certain questions on that survey that indicate to us the feeling of safety from staff and students.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Under year 2, 2014 key actions and indicators,
Mhm.
you talk about all new major purchases. We're not just talking equipment, but if we do renovations or building changes and things like that, right?
Anything over 25,000. So this year, what you will see, pardon me? Okay, so this year, for year one, you'll see, and it will be reported out in August, we'll have the prioritization form developed, and we will share the questions that we've spearheaded from the 5 Essentials survey that measured safety of students. And if we have the data in August, we'll report out exactly what the data show this year. So that's line one. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, the next one, establish a board policy that sets minimum and maximum fund balances. We know we'll be successful in this goal if fund balances are within our policy guidelines. Year one, policies adopted. We may meet that goal already tonight. Then in years 2 through 4, we review for adherence to the policy, and you'll actually notice on the board planning calendar when we do that, it's actually on the board planning calendar, so it's done every year.
I think the policy is going to stay 30 to 50%.
Okay,
So that's what it says in the policy.
So
Then the funds that we,
what am I missing on here?
when you say 25 to 60,
Oh, I see, okay.
so that needs to be changed.
Okay, that needs to be changed. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. I put on here the schedule for reporting, which should align with your board planning calendar. August board meeting for fund balance policy review, and the October board meeting, we have our annual financial report, or our audit. Any questions on that line? See, it's easier, business is black and white, so it's easier to come up with the indicators for these.
The question, the policy states that we're going to have a discussion in the spring. I said, shall. I mean, we're going to get to the policy later. I just want to make sure the two tie back together.
Well, and that's a question I had, because that's where we have to cross-reference the board planning calendar with this. We do say spring. When you look at it, everything comes together financially in August, if you remember that from this past year. So we could review in the spring, but it might be more natural to do it in August when everything kind of comes together.
Okay.
Whatever dates are referred to on the final fund balance policy, that we should double check and
Right.
update and make sure that this
And
aligns with that. So
we'll be doing that tonight, so whatever we decide tonight, I'll transfer to here.
Okay.
All right, the next one is evaluate programs for effectiveness based on return on investment and intended outcomes. We know we'll be successful in this goal if all purchase of $25,000 or more have specific outcome measures and timelines for review. Okay, so we know our actions are going to be all new programs of $25,000 or more need to be presented with defined outcomes and timelines approved prior to launch. Okay, and we'll create an evaluation cycle for all existing programs. In year one, we know we're going to be reviewing our English language arts. We've already started on that. If we purchase materials, it's going to be over $25,000. So we're going to have defined outcomes and timelines on what we're going to be doing with that. We may be doing a possible update to math. There's going to be more discussion on that most likely in February, maybe March. And we're also reviewing our response to intervention this year. We know that in year two, we're going to be looking at technology, because we've got a technology plan up for review from the state next year. And the science standards were just approved, I believe, today. Thursday of last week. So we'll be looking and making our science review in year two. Based upon these two areas, we'll be able to look at years 3 and 4. Kevin and Joanne are looking at our audit. We need to get these boxes filled in prior to the end of the school year, so we can tell you exactly what we're going to be studying in years 3 and 4.
were you saying the Common Core science section was approved on Thursday?
The new gen science standards were approved on Thursday of last week. And while we're probably better than a lot of districts, because Anne Rochelle is very knowledgeable on the science standards and has taken part, she's already stated that there were more changes than she thought there would be in the standards, so we'll have to work on the alignment of that. And in March, that's a typical time that you would report on your program evaluation and look at buying curriculum materials. Okay?
So, a question, just to make sure I understand. So we're going to go back for all programs for which we spent at least $25,000 and establish a timeline?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the biggest ones that you're gonna see in our district are curriculum. Those are the biggest programs on over 25,000. So we know this year, we're already reviewing our English language arts, and we may update math, because there's been a new publication in our math series for the elementary school. So those would be the only programs this year, curriculum-wise, that are over 25,000, that we need to come back to you with outcomes and timelines. And then an evaluation cycle for that program.
Jean, just have a question, like, what about the iPad thing? Would that be under that, or? would
That
be-
falls, that's a great question, Chris. That falls in year 2, because we have, every 3 years, the state mandates that you have a technology plan.
Okay.
And typically, at least one board member sits on that. Our technology plan will be starting, the work on it will be starting this summer. And we actually study what we've got and we plan out the next 3 years. So that will be done in year 2, because we have to submit it to the state next spring. Okay, questions on that line? Okay, the next page, and again, mind you, we'll have pages numbered, and it will look beautiful very soon, and I would even like it color-coded, but right now, this is, wouldn't it be sweet if we had it? I would like to do that. So the next one is develop a district facilities plan that addresses, but is not limited to, safety, space, concerns, and land use. We know we have completed and been successful in the goal when a facilities plan addresses safety, space concerns, and land use is in place that increases from 67 to 80% for all buildings. These numbers come from that educational adequacy report,
Oh,
if you remember, and 80% would be what what our architect said would be good, and we were in this low 60s range, I believe, currently at the middle school. So I'm just giving you the context of what those numbers were.
So here we're talking about space, common space? Is that-
We're talking about space, we're talking about facilities plan, we're talking about any land use, but specifically that 67 to 80%, if you remember when we presented on the educational adequacy, our middle school was in the 60s, and the goal was set to at least get to 80%, acknowledging that we may not get to 100% in a building that was built in the 60s. And I know from being born in the 60s, things start creaking and doing all those things. So we know that some of our actions are going to be visiting other top-tier learning environments. Again, we had a visit scheduled that was canceled due to the weather. We need a development of a long-term plan for the district office, and we're already starting that. We need a long-term facilities plan laid out with the next 5 years and even beyond that. Examine our current space allocations and deploy or realign based on latest curriculum programs, and then utilize an outside consultant to identify potential security improvements. That's already been done, and I'll be sharing some of that in the next 2 months. So for year 1, if you look, work with architect to complete a facilities plan and review. We've done that already. Review space needs as a part of enrollment projections and curricular demands. He did that in the study, but we are then going to take it a step further and have this facilities committee at the middle school take a look at maybe some flexible walls and some of the issues that we had from our report. And then review safety improvements for action in the following year. As I said, that's something that we'll be talking about. And most of what's handled in the safety and security report is for closed session, because it does deal with certain security issues in schools that now are a public exemption from Open Meetings Act. So that's year 1, and then it's spread out to different items each year. I put in here January or February.
Can I back up just, sometimes I think I need to say this really plainly so nobody thinks that we're hiding anything. We have security issues that will be put into place or are in place that we don't want the bad guys to know about. That's all that means, is we do that in close, we discuss that in closed session, so it's not public. Just to say it plainly and simple.
That's a good way to say it. I've got January, February as report outs, and really, we're a little bit ahead of the game this year anyway, but I would expect that we'll have more report outs on the facilities from middle school within the coming months. Questions on that line?
Responsible people, that's the one thing I noticed on the prior one too. Responsible team members.
Responsible.
We didn't finish filling that out, but we're just gonna have director of business on all of them,
Oh, okay.
so.
Since he's gonna be a new hire, right?
Since he's in the-
Just load everything on
Here's
him.
your
It's not
job.
here, we can volunteer.
Right.
The next one is establish metrics to monitor district financial health. In fact, I have an email into ECRA because I want our dashboard up and going. And so this year, we'll be working with ECRA and other stakeholders to develop our dashboard, and it should be up and going by June of this coming year. And then every year, you may decide, you know what, this piece of data on the dashboard means nothing, so let's not report on that, but I'd rather have you report on this. So every year in June and January, we reevaluate that, and we can always change our dashboard and just, if ECRA can do it, we'll do it. So those are our 2 report out times.
Is it, I know you're overworked and the staffing is an issue, but is June, I don't know, for some reason in my gut, it seems like June's a long time away. We can't push Akron to do that faster?
Oh, it'll be up prior to June.
Okay. I know
It's just that these are our report out months, which is why I put that on there.
Reports up, back to the board.
Right,
Okay.
because always in June and January, we're gonna have kind of end of the year reports and then mid-year reports. So you're gonna see a lot of that.
I
try to put
was
everything on a
thinking that
cycle.
the dashboard wouldn't be up until June.
No.
Okay.
But those are your typical report out
Right,
months
got it.
for that. Any questions on that one? Okay, and then finally, I think it's finally, yep. Develop a long-term comprehensive and prioritized plan to guide spending. This is really develop that 5-year master plan, review of spending plan for any revisions. This actually, and I put in here May to September. The reason for that is that's when you start looking at your budget parameters for the next year. As we had said before, August is when everything kind of hits as far as the budget and looking at our fund balance policy. And based on the budget, what are we going to be doing with levy? And so I put it in the May-September range because it may be part of the conversation with all the other financials. Questions on that one? Any questions at all on board goal 3? Comments, questions?
And we're gonna,
No, the review time or not, I mean, eventually, I think as we start working on this, we may
You may move it.
shift. That's
We can
all.
always
That
shift.
would be my concern, you know, that,
and we're gonna tackle this a little bit at a time, right? So next month, we'll move on. Okay.
Next, at the next board meeting, we're gonna go through board goal 1 and go through the indicators for that, because I'm hoping we can get our district improvement team meeting next week.
And, okay, so that's it for item B. Under discussion items, we're gonna move to 7, the new board planning calendar.
This I do not have extra copies of. Does everybody have their board planning calendar from their packets?
Is that in the packet or is that a separate?
I emailed it to you. I did not run extra copies of
Okay,
this.
but you did email that to us.
I did. I think I just want to make some general comments on this, because again, it's a work in progress, but this is what we need, and it really solves what we had talked about in our board workshop and trying to align our work to board policy. And so, and Mark and I had spent some time talking about that, so what I did is I took all 12 months and I took the Illinois Association of School Boards and I put all of the record, it looks like this. I printed you one.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah?
you have one. So maybe if you just share, because I didn't want extra copies, and I'll email it again to you tonight.
Yeah, I have it.
But the bottom line is that I took the Illinois Association of School Board deadlines. I added the Illinois Association of School Business Official deadlines. I added all of the board goal dates, with the exception of board goal 4, because Jill and I are still working on those for communication. And this needs to be our breathing document. So as a board member, I would envision that you could look at February and say, okay, these are all the things that we're gonna be working on
This
this
is
month.
the starting point for all our agendas.
Right. This is the starting point, you know, when we're doing it, and then, Chris, I'm gonna get back to your question. So let's say that, I'm gonna pick something. The board finishes the evaluation of the superintendent, and you find that that's either way too late or way too early. As a board, you bring that back and say, is there any way we can move that back a month, or, you know, what would everybody think? We have certain guidelines and deadlines, but there is flexibility in this board planning calendar. This is not, these represent good times for staff and when testing comes and when we have data, but this is for you. This is for all of you in your governance role.
And one thing this does, which is really nice, is it ties everything to policy and strategic plan. So we can easily lift, whenever we set up agendas, we can refer to policy and any strategic planning elements that should be on every single agenda that we have here, so we know what policies we're dealing with and what part of the plan we're dealing with.
The other thing that I did on here, and I don't know if you can see it on your electronic versions, when I work with whoever sits on the new policy committee, I know Julie and I will be on it, but I know we're gonna have at least 1 or 2 other people that will be volunteering this evening.
Clamoring to volunteer.
They will be clamoring, especially when you find out more details about the policy meeting. I did highlight some items in blue, and I really like this. Once we get caught up with policy between now and June, the Illinois Association of School Boards actually says, okay, in January, you should be reviewing all of your board policy manual sections 3 and 5. So everybody would look through those and see, are they up to date? And so you're actually doing a review of your board policy once a year in those areas. So I made sure that I put those dates on. I actually took all the documents from the indicators, with the exception of Board Goal 4, and put them in here. And one of the first projects that my new secretary will be doing is finishing up Board Goal 4 and putting the dates in here. And then this will be our new living document. So you'll have this every month. If we make any changes, it will reflect on him, and it really, truly will align with board policy. Comments, questions, concerns?
And it's gonna look a lot prettier when you're the secretary.
It is, but I think it's pretty now, and I think it will be more pretty.
I didn't get the colors on my PDF thing.
I'm sorry to hear that, John.
I think you need to do a little better on that one.
No, I think it doesn't go on the iPad.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Any other questions about that? No. All right, item 7D, school year calendar issues. Back to Jean.
Okay, let me just get organized here. All right. I have actually, this is more, I'm getting your feedback, and I'm informing of a couple different situations. First, I want to address makeup days. I did touch base with Lake Forest today, and we're all in agreement that we would like to do some of our makeup days. And one of the makeup days that we've all kind of decided on would be President's Day. I can't find my sheet with the actual date. I believe it's February 19th, maybe. So let me start from the beginning. First, 17? Okay. I'm going to have you guys get dates for these others as I come up. Let me give a general overall first. In the calendar that is approved in school districts, there are 5 emergency days built in. So on our calendar right now, with our 5 emergency days, we're to finish on what date, Kevin, when you look in June? But the following week with emergency days would be June 12th. June 12th. Now, it's important to note that that's late for our school district. The Park District programs start that week, and in a normal school year, you don't use your emergency days and we'd be done June 5th. Well, we've already used 4 of our 5 emergency days. So we could continue to just go to school that week until June 12th, knowing that we're conflicting with Park District programs and families taking vacations and graduate school for our teachers, because they are emergency days and it's understood that people may have to work them. The other option would be to make up some days now so that we could still finish that first week in June. So a couple of the options that we've mentioned, and I've actually run it by the teachers union. One is February 17th, President's Day. That one Lake Forest has already said they're considering, so if we joined them, we'd all be in session and it would be a business as usual day here. The next one is the Monday after Easter, which I call Easter Monday, and that is April, do you have the date on that one? 21st? April 21st. Right now, we have that scheduled off, but we could have that in attendance day. The third makeup day that we could have would be the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, which is May 23rd or 24th. Right now, we're scheduled for an Institute Day, but we could have student attendance on those days. Then we would have a couple choices. That's 3 of our 5 days that we would be made up.
Well, we only have
Four.
4.
Right, but if we still wanted to end on Thursday, June 5th, because we kind of get in our mindset, you're gonna finish on Thursday. It would be very easy for us to make up that 4th day on the Friday, and everybody just ends school on Friday and everybody's happy. Wouldn't that be great? Okay, so that would be nice, but
But the classroom,
that would work, and it works for us for summer school, and it works for us for everything. But I'm gonna tell you, we have 2 more months of winter. And I will tell you, I've been in districts, I've been in Illinois where we've had snow days in March. So I just wanna put everybody on notice that it would be my goal that we would use these 3 days as makeup days and use the Friday and finish on Friday and then be off. That second week, everybody would be off. Would that make sense to everybody?
yeah.
Okay,
I think it's important that you try to avoid Lake Forest, because there are families with kids in both schools, and so.
and Mark made a very important comment that's gonna lead me right into my next conversation, so thank you, Mark, for doing that for me. It is important that we align with Lake Forest, and I actually have been meeting with them regularly on the calendar for next school year, and I just wanted to throw a couple items out for you. Right now, they're a week, they start school a week later than we do in District 67. So if we align our calendar, we're starting a week later. So I'm just going on notice with that. And a decision's gonna need to be made with that, and typically what's done is the administration sits down with a couple teachers from the teachers union, and we look at the whole calendar, and then we bring it to the board. So I wanted to get your feeling on that as community members. The second thing I wanted to just comment on is, in the high school, I'm going to keep in mind for the big picture, the high school athletes typically always start the second week in August. And so then when do the high school kids start then?
A couple of days
Monday the
typically
25th.
after we start, yeah. Our elementary, and then they start we start on a Thursday or Friday, and they
Well,
start that next Monday typically.
No, everybody, freshmen start on Friday.
So they're around
and
the
upperclassmen
class.
start on Monday the 25th this coming year.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, so one of the options I need to hear from you on is starting school a week later. The other thing I just want you to be aware of, and I'm not prepared to talk about it at great length, but I do, the word's already out on the street, I've had parents talk to me about it, is that Lake Forest is looking down the road at altering their school calendar to make sure that the kids would actually have their final exams prior to Christmas break. Research is really supporting looking at the social emotional needs of high school kids. They truly, because we have a very successful, highly driven high school setting, the kids are spending Christmas break doing research projects and studying and doing all of that, and they're looking at moving the calendar earlier to August and then finishing by Christmas. Now, one of the questions you may be asking me is that new? Not really. It started kind of throughout the state. My neighboring district, Barrington, just passed it. It's big in the high school organization, especially in a community like this that we know Our students are very stressed out, and we're concerned about their social emotional needs. I have not, there's gonna be talking points with that. I think you need to be aware that it may be on the horizon, and then the question's going to be, do we want to align with them to have all of our families be on the same schedule? Or do we want to do our own thing? I feel pretty strongly that we should, since we have shared families, we should align with Lake Forest. That's a decision that's going to be down the road, but you need to be aware that it's on the horizon. My goal when I meet with Lake Forest, and I'm meeting with them tomorrow morning, is going to be, are we going to be okay, and should I be working with teachers on a week later start? We're going to try to align a couple of our institute days, which gives us some flexibility on scheduling any big speakers for staff if we chose to do that. Gives us flexibility for all the first grade teachers in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff to work together. We need to be looking more at shared services. So it sounds to me like the makeup days I'm okay on, but tell me your feelings about starting school a week later.
I am all for it. I think the summer, when they were building LBES and we started after Labor Day, I thought that was the greatest thing, as did my kids. It just made the summer seem so much longer. The weather's typically good in August, more so than in June. And not to mention aligning with Lake Forest, so I think that makes good sense.
I thought
they were gonna start.
Start early.
Well, that's down the road. I said that's down the road. Next year it would be a little later. Because, all right, so.
So currently, where does Lake Forest make up that week? I mean, if we
They-
start a week earlier.
They have different days throughout their year. For instance, one of the items, and I hear about it from parents a lot, and I don't know if it's solvable this year, and I hear it from staff a lot, is our early release days every month. It's confusing when they are, because we try to have them on different days so that each child doesn't miss music the same time every month. But they have early release days every Monday. And so that's their teacher plan time, and all parents know about it, and they are much better at being able to schedule weeks with continuous instruction.
You're talking about high school?
Now I'm talking about 67.
67.
Yeah.
So they don't have as many early release days.
I think our biggest thing to align to is the high school.
Well, here's the problem, the high school, and we're trying to, but
The high
even,
school's changing.
even 67 is not totally aligned with the high school, believe it or
No,
not,
sounds
which
like
was
they are.
surprising to me.
No, if they start a week later, because the high school definitely
Right.
doesn't start a week later.
So that's the one, I mean, I'm gonna do the best I can, but the bottom line is that even 67 is not totally aligned with the high school. I will do the very best I can.
I
but
think
if-
that'd be a great thing for shared services to align everybody's schedule. I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, because I think there would be hardship even for somebody in Lake Forest if they are not on the same page. So, probably there would be a lofty goal to align the calendar.
Some of the dust was set on levels because the high school is setting a new days. Highly likely to implement the new daily schedule next year from the current 7
Right, so
to some version of block schedule. So that's going to affect all this as well, where they land. They presented 3 or 4 different versions of it, but I don't think they've landed on a specific option yet either. And their union has to approve whatever they decide on.
I'd love to see us start a week later if that's what the high school is doing, because I do think we need to be aligned with them. And then, it's going to maybe change later on, we don't know. For the early release days, I'm assuming the reason we do that is we want credit with the state for having had a day of school,
You are
and we're
absolutely
using part of the
right.
day for instruction, for teacher in service. Because really, if you were doing what worked best for just people in the community, instead of having 3 early releases, you just have a day of teacher
Right.
institute.
No, we have to have a minimum of 5 instructional hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that.
I mean, I think it would help if it followed a pattern. I know you were saying the times that the kids are released is the same every time. And it doesn't seem like that, but probably because the teacher conference day is a different time.
Well, and we're working on teacher conference days. The staff is very conscientious. And I have to give our teachers a major plug. Their report cards that they send home at the elementary school are probably the most detailed, well-written report cards ever. But we need to do a study on report cards. That is gonna come down. We can only do so many things per year. But our parent conferences have to align with our report card times. And so there's so many things in a calendar. And the more we look at even our indicators, when you get into board goals 1 and 2, everything is aligned to our teachers using data to improve instruction. They need to be able to assess the data, talk about it with their colleagues, and to have that regularly built in a schedule takes away, and I'm speaking as a mom in this case, if I know I can make arrangements for that day and I don't have to worry about, okay, this week it's falling on a Wednesday, next month it's falling on a Tuesday, and then you throw in the teacher institute days, and it's just, there's so many interruptions in the schedule that I think it's disruptive to kids.
So I agree, and I think we're all in agreement that we need to continue to improve our alignment with both 67 and 115. But I'm sort of with Mark. Of the two, I think it's more important to align with 115 because that's where the families are shared. My family is shared. I have one question, and it's just nagging at me. 2 weeks, next week, at the end of the week, we have a day and a half off because of parent-teacher conferences. And one question I've always had, and I'm just going to ask it, is what credit do we get with the state when we go till 11? Because one of the days we only go till 11.
Well, what happens is when you count up the hours, because we have the night conferences on that Thursday, it counts. So you have to count up the work hours, and that's why they're
the teachers. But what about the students? So what I'm thinking is there a way to gain a day during those otherwise parent-teacher conferences? Because I had understood anyway that the second set of parent-teacher conferences were not universally attended.
And I would answer, Susan, by telling you I'm hearing that from a lot of parents.
Right. Well,
so you are absolutely correct.
And so is there either can we pick up a half day then, or can we pick up a whole day or day and a half? It just, the other thing that it strikes me is that there's got to be other times to schedule parent-teacher conferences throughout the evening.
You know, many districts are going through the same thing. Don't forget, our main goal is good parent homeschool communication.
I understood, and any other year I would say let's not even consider that. Let's encourage parent-teacher conferences as much as possible. But this is an extraordinary year, we hope. And of the days that you're talking about, those two sort of jump out at me as why not?
Well, at this point, we already have teachers preparing for those days. We have parents that have counted on them. But I do think that we need to look at those for the future. Because a lot of districts cut down their conferences to 1 day for the second round. Some of those things are handled through negotiation. Some are just handled off the table and talking them through. I think many of our parents would be open to looking at that for next year.
But it's not possible this year because
for the emergency days. Yeah, and at this point it's too late. President's Day we all kind of agreed on. We have teachers that are already preparing for the other, and we have parents that do count on that day of kids that need support. So it sounds to me, I'm going to summarize, like all of you think it's a great idea. Let's try to align with the high school as much as we can. We do share transportation with Lake Forest too, so that's actually helps Folsom transportation. I will do my best. They have some restrictions on their schedules that we do not have at the high school. Mm-hmm. So I will work through that and come back with a good plan, I hope.
Now, just to clarify, if we align with the high school, are we starting a week later or are we starting at the same time?
We will start around the same time as the high school.
Which is where we
currently start? It's a few days later. Currently it's a few days later.
No matter what, we're going to
It extends by a half week, generally. Rather than start Thursday, Friday of a week, you start Monday, Tuesday.
So what does that do for the Christmas press? Well, I thought you were trying to get exams done before Christmas.
That's going to be coming down the road at the high school.
That's the high school.
The other thing I want to add, this is just my mantra when we have a calendar conversation, it drives people crazy to come back to school on a Friday.
Yeah, it
And
does.
I've heard that teachers like
I agree,
it,
that's
and people think kids like it. I promise you, they would like to have that last week of vacation with their families more than they would like to have that half a day of school.
Yeah.
I mean, summer is really too short here, and so anytime we talk about calendar, I just have to throw that into the hopper. It's a, you know, and people complain to me about it, and I say, you know, tell the superintendent, contact the district. People don't want to, you know, call and harangue you about that, but it is something I hear about quite a bit.
Anything else that needs to be considered?
Well, I think we covered this, but just to clarify the point, whatever can be done to minimize the number of in-service days, or maybe not in-service days, but shortened days, the more regular we can have the schedule, I think the more parents like the schedule.
I would agree, and even if that means that we look at every Monday or whatever we're gonna look at, it brings continuity and consistency, and it will better enable us to keep continuity through the week. Because that's what we look at. They go to school 3 days here, they're off 2. They go to school the next 4, they're off 1. So we need to really take a look at that big picture of things. So, all right, that is my calendar.
That's calendar issues. Okay, 7E, board report on self-evaluation workshop. As you guys recall, on Tuesday, January 14th, we spent 3+ hours locked in a conference room to do some board self-evaluation, and best practice dictates that we report back to the community what were the outcomes of that meeting, so that we show that we're making valuable use of our time. We spent many hours talking about how we could be better as a board, and to distill that down to a nutshell, we came up with next steps, things that we need to do going forward as a board. The first, the superintendent will align our board meeting agenda items with the relevant policies, which she's already described how that's going to happen. The board will form a policy committee, which we will talk about a little bit later on. In July, the board will consider forming a finance committee. The board planning calendar will be aligned with policy, which it already is. Board members will be thoughtful, brief, and concise with their comments during meetings. The board president will provide strong leadership in facilitating board meeting discussions. And the board will identify ways to reach out to the community. All are good things, and we spent a lot of time distilling it down to those 7. Any questions, concerns, comments? That concludes item E. Item F, Park District School District meeting update. Jean, John, and myself attended a meeting with several members from the Park District. I don't have the date for that, but it was 2-3 weeks ago. Something.
We were in school,
Early
so
January.
it wasn't one of those school days.
With Ron Salsky, who's the director, and Kevin Considine, the president, and help me with the third name. Forget the gentleman's name. Sit at the end of the table. Architect by profession.
Oh, Foster,
Rob
Rob
Foster.
Foster.
Rob Foster.
Rob. And we primarily met to talk about a long-standing debt that the school had to the Park District, revolving around a parking lot in the Old West School. We owed them some money. The Park District had an assessment done on the value of that parking lot, and we agreed to pay them $60,000 to clear that from our books. And then the conversation led to ways that we can move forward and share services and start a committee evaluating. They're starting a committee to evaluate and look at their Park District properties and how we would be part of that committee as well. John, what am I leaving out?
The only other thing is that the $60,000 is reserved. It's not an incremental expense. We've reserved it for years on the books, correct?
Actually, we did not this past year because
Oh, we
it was
didn't.
contingency. And we budgeted
Okay.
for contingency this year.
But we're gonna have to amend the budget anyway, so.
Right. We can do it when we amend the budget.
Okay.
It's been in our budget for years, but it's a small piece of our reserves, and it's been something we needed to take care of for years. So we agreed. We all agreed at the table, it was unanimous. They were happy to get it done. We were happy to get it done. So we will cut them a check.
We talked a little bit about sharing storage
Yep.
facilities, perhaps with the Park District, and maybe even using the furnace piece
Mhm.
for that
So
purpose.
there's a number of different things that will be talked about in more depth in the future. Yep. Anything else on that issue?
No, I don't remember that far back right
Okay.
now tonight.
So that concludes item F. Moving on to policy committee, hand it over to Jean.
Well, we have a date. Julie, what date was it? I have February, is it 7th?
Monday, February 10th.
Yes, okay.
See, I already put it on.
And we will be meeting, and you really need to hear this because I know you're all gonna wanna be doing this. We're gonna be meeting at 6 o'clock in Innovasi.
Wait,
Go
no,
through
6 o'clock at Innovasi.
Sales job.
To go through some mandatory changes we need to make in policy to be current for our compliance visit. So Julie and I know we can at least get three other people that would love to be there that night at 6 for an hour meeting just to briefly go through what we need to do.
I have the perfect excuse. I teach at 6:30.
All right, so there's one person that can, is anybody interested in joining us? You can
I'm
let
sure I
Julie
can.
know. All you need to do is send Julie an email. And if,
You
I,
wouldn't mean
I know you don't all want to volunteer at the same time because there'll be so many.
Right.
So you just need to let us.
See, I can't wait for this meeting, so.
But let Julie or myself know because
I mean, if you
Yes.
can move the meeting, because I cannot make either Monday night or Wednesday night.
okay.
All right, we'll follow up.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody's got to be a sucker.
As we need to go over on that issue.
That's all we need.
On to item 8.7H, which is public relations. Jean?
That is, actually, that was something that all of you had mentioned, that one of the things that came from our board workshop was the responsibility that the board has in looking at different press releases, and especially when we're talking about finance. So you wanted to talk about that a little bit at this meeting.
So we wanted to talk about where does the board role and staff role begin, or vice versa, to clarify the board's role when it comes to communicating financial decisions to the community, how much input we have to the final PR output, and the written documents that are sent to the community. And want to make sure that we do it in a way that doesn't step on Jean's toes, so it's laid out clearly up front, and we present to the community the clearest, most efficient documents we can.
Do you want to share what we did for on the bluff that just went up?
Sure. And that has been mailed?
Yes.
Was that?
It's at home,
I
I
received it
believe.
today.
Oh. Well, the tri-board just sent out, and hopefully people at home will be receiving it. It's called On the Bluff, a newsletter from the Park District and the village and the school board, where we all wrote articles and provided updates about things going on in our worlds. And one of the sections in that the school board put out was on recent financial updates. And that was drafted with we have a consultant that works with us on press releases. And John and myself and Jean sat together and brainstormed the topics and the content and some wording that we wanted to put in it. And our consultant drafted it and sent it out to Jean for review, and then it went to myself and to John, and it went back and forth between John and me a couple
Jane.
times, and Jane as well, until we got to the point where we felt pretty comfortable with it, and then it was released and sent out. But I want to make sure everybody's on the same page with going forward. Where is the board's responsibility when it comes to the release of financial information to the community? How much do we own that? Well, we all agree that we need to send it out, but the specific language of those releases is where is the
Well, I think the
conversation.
process you just followed is fine, and whoever wants to pitch in can pitch in depending on circumstances, and it can be finance, or it may be major schedule changes, and at that point in time, it may be another board member, but I think the process, of outlining what we want to talk about and having somebody draft it and then, wordsmithing it is fine.
I think it worked well because you used your discretion about who you thought might be most appropriate. And since I was so involved earlier in much of the finance decision, you share that with me. In the future, it may be Julie on a policy issue or someone else on another issue. So I think I would leave it to your best discretion.
Should we have a minimum 3 board member involvement kind of thing?
I would leave it as loose as possible.
Well, I don't want to get,
I think as long as you're not out there, doing it by yourself,
no way.
then we're fine. This was fine, and if
Yeah,
no one had
whatever
objections, let's
it's
keep
just
going the way we have.
Whatever
been.
makes it efficient.
I would just, if there is anything financial, I'd like to get a last look at it.
Mhm. I just want to make sure we CYA,
I think
cover
it's
ourselves.
I think it's important that the board approve through whatever process, particularly the financial information that goes out, because that is uniquely a board function and responsibility. So, and I think John, I'm happy to give a proxy to John, because I think he's been so close to that and so involved with that, I'd be very comfortable with anything that he reviews. If he's not available, you'll use your discretion.
Do you need it formalized more?
No, I don't.
I don't.
Discussion?
No.
I don't either.
I want to reiterate that this was something Barb Tony also shared was your responsibility in the board workshop. So
Are you okay with leaving it that?
I'd rather keep it the
Yes,
way.
don't structure things too
Yeah,
much.
because
because
otherwise
it's-
then I have to
then
try.
the
It's
structure.
around.
Just making
Yeah.
sure. Just want to make sure. Moving on, action items with discussion. I need to pull up my agenda. No, I got that. I mean, the part that has the actual personnel part on it. I would like to have a motion for the approval of the personnel report that is included in your board documents. That includes the employment of Jane Preck as the new administrative assistant to the superintendent, effective February 3rd, 2014.
No.
Okay. As well as employment of Sally Verdon at the middle school as a long-term sub, effective February 28th, 2014 to March 14th, 2014.
It's actually going to be January 28th,
Okay.
2014,
January through March then?
through March.
So January 28th through March 14th of 2014. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second. Christine, roll call please.
Mark Bell,
Yes.
Ann Shaw, Lee Ann Shaw,
Yes.
Julie Gottschall,
Yes.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Riley,
Yes.
Richard Hank.
Yes.
John Herrick. And Charlotte.
Let's
Did you
turn these this way.
I didn't hear it. Did you vote? Rich?
Yes.
Okay. The motion is approved.
I got my list.
So now we'll move on to 8B, the approval of fund balance policy, which is also in your board packet. Would anybody like to start off with a little commentary from Dr. Sophie?
I would like to share that we replayed the videotape of that evening to make sure that we got all of your comments in here. So what you see is exactly what we decided on.
And maybe we'll just do the discussion before we go to the motion.
Page 40.
I have one editorial suggestion.
What are you looking for, Susan?
I'm just trying to get my copy out.
Here it is.
Page number, page 48 on the
I got it.
download.
The one in your heart.
I normally would expect Julie to catch this, but I was on the ball. I was on the ball here. I think in the second paragraph it should say unforeseen events or unexpected expenses rather than of unexpected expenses. You got that too? Otherwise, it's fine.
And you caught that.
I
And
did.
we just have to make sure that, we're referring to at least once annually in the spring, so that has to sort of jive with
What paragraph is
Whatever.
in that?
last paragraph under 5, last sentence.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we have to jive with
All
this
right, so do
calendar.
you want it in the spring or do you want it in August as in the board?
My gut feeling would be in the spring,
Okay.
because I'd rather think that we need to know early if there's a problem, and then let's see how that
You
plays.
can always do it again in August.
I agree.
Well, I would do it twice.
I
just,
agree.
So, I have a couple of substantive comments, and the paragraph that's the very last paragraph and the paragraph that's the third from the last seem very redundant to me. I know that they're worded differently, but first we say the superintendent or designee shall inform the board whenever it should discuss drawing upon reserves to keep it within a range, right? abbreviating. And then the last paragraph, in the event of the aggregate fund balance approaches the limits of the targeted range, the board will direct the superintendent to prepare a recommendation. So they either shouldn't be separated, collapsed into a single paragraph, or they maybe aren't both necessary because they're both addressing the topic of what to do if we are on either end of the
Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, but
So my suggestion would be that we put them together and
Right.
yes.
massage them a little bit. I'm sorry I'm doing this now rather than
Yeah.
earlier. But the other thing that struck me is in that third from the last paragraph, we talk about the ways in which we might reduce or drawing upon the reserves or implementing remedial procedures. I guess I was thinking there's a third option, or maybe it's captured within remedial procedures, but there may be that we want to plan for a specific future expense that is the way we bring the reserve down, right? Or because what we've said is that one reason the reserve may be beyond the range, or it's in here somewhere. Certain repairs and other expenditures as specifically identified by the board is in the immediately preceding paragraph. So it may be that we are over, and we know why we're over, because we are planning for a specific expense. And I think we all agree that that would be understood and acceptable. So one suggestion I have is in that paragraph, when we tweak it, when we put it together with the last paragraph, we might say something like, planning for a specific future expenditure might be another way that we address this.
Or you could do it from an accounting standpoint by having an accrual, where you would actually take that money out of the reserve.
Which would be fine, right?
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and maybe that's captured with remedial procedures.
You want to comment on that?
Well, is that not covered by
I don't
other
think we can do that.
expenditures as specifically identified?
It is in the paragraph prior, but then
And
when
it
we
says
get into
5-year
the
projections.
mechanisms, you know, when we get into the mechanisms of how to make sure that we stay within that range, that's when it's when we don't mention that particular link. Now, it may be that it's captured sufficiently within drawing on the reserves or implementing remedial procedures, but those struck me as being different somehow. So I think we all understood that that's, and it's reflected in the prior paragraph when we refer to as you point out that the expenditures as specifically identified are in the prior paragraph. But I don't want to lose sight of that notion that we all talked about, that there are sometimes when you build a reserve on purpose, because you know what you need to spend it on, and it's designated in advance, and you're not spending it that year, but you're spending it, a year out. Now, I'm not talking about new building or new wings on buildings,
We're
I'm
talking about CapEx.
CapEx,
Okay,
exactly.
let's pause here for a second. There was something that was said that you guys think there's something we cannot do.
Can Christine repeat her comment about
Something about accrual, Chris.
accrual of the?
Well,
The
you
CapEx.
could, arguably, you could accrue every year for the CapEx. In other words, if you want to do something in let's say the middle school, I'm making this up, okay, like a science lab, and it's going to be $2 million, and you want to accrue every year $500.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, but-
Okay with that.
Okay.
That's-
Oh, yeah.
okay.
So,
That is something to do what you said.
Okay.
right.
so we're
I mean,
good.
I'm not talking about even formal accrual, because that's gonna, that's not the way you do the books. But I think that for reporting purpose, you can do this. You can actually earmark part of the reserve, and
That's
that's what
what
you
I'm
want to do.
talking about, right?
Yeah,
So
that's fine. That's fine.
But
So
these
we-
last three paragraphs deal with what we do should the fund balance exceed the 50%. And
In other words, there got to be a justification of why the fund balance
exceeds 50, and what this provides for is that the superintendent or designee will notify us of a potential of that occurring, that's what that says, or we will review it ourselves in spring. That's what those two
Correct.
paragraphs are saying.
the last and the third from
Right,
last,
right.
right?
So I.
Right, but we do go on to say what the remedial measures might be, drawing upon reserves or implementing remedial procedures. And I just did not want to lose sight of the fact that one thing that we may do is make a plan for future expenditure. I know it's here, but it gets, pushed to the side by the
also,
time.
you know, if you look, it coincides with the strategic plan where you have that, whatever it's called, it's 5-year
Education.
building plan.
Right.
So I think that once we have that more pat down, I mean, it's going to be very, it's going to be very obvious. I mean, so I'm not sure we have to legislate this as tightly as you think, because I think the mechanism itself is going to take care of it. So you know, the important thing is that we don't want the reserve to go completely out of.
And I think we say that.
So
I'm of
you
the
know,
mind that we don't say it as well as we could for the last paragraph and the paragraph, 3 paragraphs preceding, but
Well,
that's
we'll
always the case, and that's why I can't be on the policy
We
committee.
can
until
send it
I
back.
get
We can
it
send it back.
done.
But you would like to come in and ask.
Yes, right.
We can send it back to get those 2 paragraphs.
Is that what you want to do? I need some direction on
Yeah, I
this.
mean, it's clear to me that it says the district may maintain a fund balance beyond this range. And I
Okay.
presume that's for potential expenditures that were either unrecognized or not planned for, beyond this range for ordinary, known, and certain repairs and other expenditures as specifically
That's what it
identified.
was.
So that's pretty clear.
Yeah,
So
specifically.
the next paragraph indicates that the superintendent or designee shall inform the board whenever it should discuss drawing upon these reserves. That's kind of redundant, because in the prior paragraph, we already indicate that we may use those monies for a specific
So
reason.
should we take that paragraph, that sentence out?
I don't see any reason to have that sentence in there.
So that's the 4th paragraph down.
Yeah,
Because that would take care of Susan's.
It would.
yeah, just take that
It
paragraph
would.
out. So the following paragraph then provides for the board and the superintendent or designee to monitor the balance and have a discussion. So I think that paragraph is unnecessary.
Julie, you okay with that?
I am okay.
I am.
like that.
I am too. And let's the record reflect that
Done.
I started by saying it was redundant, and we I'll take it away.
All right, so we.
I suggest
So
we
we
strike
kill
the 4th
paragraph
paragraph and
4.
leave it as is, and leave the rest as is.
Let the record show.
Okay.
So do we just approve a reading, or we're not going to approve it modified?
Here's what I would do.
you can
I
approve
would-
it and make a motion to eliminate
You
this. and
make the
approve.
motion and you read through the revisions so that we're approving it for second reading, so it's official after this meeting. And
Okay.
then we go back and make the changes.
So we need a motion to revise.
Right, and motion to approve the revised, and then I'll read
Okay,
what changes I have done.
all right.
Okay.
So item 8 is going to go.
Go ahead.
Uh-oh.
There are different concepts, though, so I'm looking more closely at it now in
The answer
paragraph.
is no.
Well, because what the paragraph with the striking says is the superintendent shall inform the board whenever it should discuss drawing down the reserves. In the last paragraph, it's the board will direct the superintendent to prepare recommendations. So I think we want to be clear about where we want that responsibility to reside to raise the issue.
Well, we're not going to be in the books.
I guess what I'm saying is I think I like going back to consolidation with some additional wordsmithing to get those both concepts.
Then I would
In
just
the paragraph.
table it and bring it back.
I'm okay with that too. You guys do?
I will join the policy
Okay, so-
committee for the
yeah,
sole purpose.
Well, yeah, but we have to eventually wrap this up.
Next time.
So-
We will.
Yeah,
I think.
but what are the recommendations we're sending? I mean, you know, first,
Merge this and this.
yeah, except that this one is the superintendent and this is the board, so we have to decide which is which.
Well, if we
One
combine
is
them,
now-
then it handles both.
Right, I think it
The
does.
board
I
and
think
superintendent.
Well, the superintendent
So-
informs the board, and then the
Or
board
directs the
will direct
superintendent.
But it is also
Just a
contradictory to
vicious
the second to last paragraph talks about reviewing, right? And so the third to the last paragraph, which is the 4th paragraph, seems to me that it puts a mechanism in place that we then talk about it not using, because we say superintendent shall inform us, but then we go on to say budgeting, the fund balance, and the levy, as well as 5-year projections, should be reviewed together and separately. Well, presumably, if we're doing that, we won't need the superintendent to raise the.
That's why I said we didn't need the paragraph.
Me too. That's what I'm saying.
So now
we'll
we're back
start right
to striking the 4th paragraph.
We're back to striking the 4th paragraph. I think, Julie, you're right. They're different concepts, but I
Right.
think we cover the mechanism
In both
in that
paragraphs.
paragraph
We
5.
did.
Leah, how about you?
I'm
She's-
for approving it the way it is. I'm not sure the conversation about who's telling, I think what the
Maybe it's
outcome
like
is
the
going to be. Yeah, I think the outcome's going to be the same. However, and I'd kind of like to just move forward.
Yeah.
You know, if people feel strongly about it, fine. But
Okay, are we
Strike the fourth paragraph.
are we comfortable with striking the fourth paragraph?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
And then moving forward to approve.
Yes.
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 So can I read through just to make sure that I have the corrections?
Okay.
Sure.
I have down in paragraph 2, third line, unforeseen events or unexpected expenses. Does everybody see that one?
Yes.
Which John caught. And then the fourth paragraph would be eliminated.
Yes.
The fifth paragraph, starting with the word budgeting, I'm going to change it to spring/August, so we do it twice.
Right.
And then that's it.
Okay.
It's good.
Sounds good.
May I have a, you have a concern?
Hurry up.
No, I
before
mean,
she
I'm just
does.
passing it on to the worksmith.
Can we move to motion?
So moved.
I'm second.
I have a motion to approve the fund balance policy per all the revisions that Jean just reviewed.
I just have one more.
Oh.
I'm sorry, and you know, yes, indulge me because I never do these things, but the beginning sentence of the last paragraph is very awkward and should read more like, the fund balance in conjunction with budgeting,
Well, how about
and
just-
the levy or something.
How about the budget instead of budgeting? The budget,
Yeah,
the
the
fund
budget.
balance, and the levy,
Yes,
as well as
that's
the
great.
5-year
That's better.
projections.
That is better.
The budget.
The
Oh,
budget.
you're
The
all coming
budget,
down with me.
Fund balance and the levy, as well as a 5-year projection,
Okay.
will be reviewed instead of should.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we have together, because that is implied. It would, should, and will be, and I don't even think, and we.
Should be reviewed by the board.
Should be reviewed by the board. Will be
Will be
reviewed.
reviewed.
Will be reviewed by
Yeah,
the
that's
board.
good.
Okay, thank you for indulging.
That's a worthwhile change.
It's missing, I always feel.
Okay, would you
weird
like to
doing
go
this
over
to
the
you.
changes
Yes.
one more time? We're gonna now listen to these changes one more time. It's okay.
Last reading.
Paragraph 2, third line, unforeseen events or unexpected expenses.
Check.
Fourth paragraph, eliminate. Fifth paragraph, the budget, the fund balance, and the levy, as well as the 5-year projections, will be reviewed by the board.
Correct.
The board and the superintendent, then I changed spring to spring/August.
And nothing, no changes to the last paragraph.
No changes to
Okay.
the last paragraph.
May I have a motion to approve the fund balance policy as amended and read by Jean?
So moved.
Second.
I think we can just raise our hand, we can do it all together, right? Is this mine? Oh, no, this is all about money. So I need
It's
a,
about money.
is all.
Yeah, it's
we
mine,
have
yeah,
roll
yeah.
call vote, please.
Roll call. Mark Berry,
Yes.
John LaRose,
Yes.
Chris Letchinger, yes. Leanne Charlotte,
Yes.
Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Reluctantly, yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Okay.
The motion is approved.
There are too many thes
Make
in
it
the
so.
5th paragraph. That's just
Did you think
sick.
we needed more discussion?
Yes, we did.
No, we just had
Less
too many
discussion.
thes in the
No,
5th.
Richard, I heard you volunteer for the policy.
I did.
You know, it's so much fun.
Item
I was gonna
8C,
ask Julie if there's
agenda.
any chance I could
Every
get on.
month, the board can choose to place items that are either recurring, such as the approval of previous minutes, annual responsibilities, such as the appointment of a school treasurer for the next year, or items of a regulatory nature that must by law be approved by the board. These items can be combined into one motion and passed together as part of a consent agenda. The board regularly screens its consent agenda each month and removes motions from it that, in the board's judgment, might otherwise require discussion or public comment. This month in the consent agenda, we are including, number 1, regular meeting minutes dated December 10th, 2013, closed session meeting minutes dated December 10th, 2013, truth and taxation meeting minutes dated December 10th, 2013,
You're gonna get it to me later.
special meeting minutes dated January 11th, 2014, special meeting minutes dated January 14th, 2014, special meeting minutes, I think I read one a second time, I apologize. Special meeting minutes dated January 16th, 2014, destruction of closed session tapes for July 17th, 2012, approval of the P card report, approval of the bills payable, approval of the treasurer's report, and approval of the activity reports. Are any of these items that anybody would like to remove from the consent agenda and discuss separately? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the following, all of these items on the consent agenda?
So
So
moved.
Second?
Second.
We have, Roll call vote, please.
John Rosen,
Yes.
Christine Leitner, yes. Leanne Charlo,
Yes.
Bridget Gotchall,
Yes.
Richard Egg,
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Barry, yes.
I'm sorry.
Motion's approved. That is all of our action items for the evening. Anything else you want to say before we go to public comments?
No, thank you for patience with weather, and you and Chris can't leave, I've got signing for you.
And one last shout out, welcome to our new principal. This is a really big deal for this community, and glad she's here. One last opportunity for public comments. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address the board? Going once, twice? No. May I have a motion to adjourn at 8:35?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nobody. We're out. We're done.
Excellent signing, right here for you and Chris.
Who's?